Well, hey there and welcome to this lesson of the church video series. So glad that you chose to join us in this part. In the last couple of lessons, we've been talking about lighting in our videos, but we've only been discussing indoor lighting. We haven't been exploring using lighting outdoors whatsoever. And I don't know, if you're anything like me, I shoot outdoors a lot. So in this lesson, we're going to be talking about using natural lighting that's already outdoors and using that to light our videos. If you haven't watched the last lesson, make sure you go back and check that out because we'll be using the same 3-point lighting technique that we talked about in that lesson outside in this lesson. And if you remember, the main light within the 3-point lighting technique is the key light, and this is the strongest light within the 3 different ones. And of course, if we're going to be shooting outside, naturally the key light is going to be the strongest light source we have outdoors, which is of course the sun. The biggest factor when shooting outside is always going to be the sun, because the sun is acting as our key light, and because of that, it's going to have the strongest impression on everything that we shoot. But unlike any indoor lights, we don't have control over the sun. We can't just dim it when we need or change the color temperature if necessary. The sun is how it is, and we have to work within those constraints. And so there are 2 factors that you and I need to consider when shooting outdoors. Factor number 1, what time of day is it? Is it dusk or dawn when the sun is rising and setting? Because if it is, that's going to mean that we're going to have really soft light that is very flattering and easy to work with. But if we're shooting around noon, that means the sun is right above us, and that is when the sun is the harshest, and that's going to create strong shadows and bright highlights that are going to be more difficult to control. And factor number 2, how much cloud cover is there to work with? Cloud cover is nature's diffusion filter. When it's an overcast day, all clouds, you're going to have very nice soft light that is very easy to manipulate and work within the shot that you're trying to create. But like I said before, if there's no cloud cover, that means that the sun is uncontrolled. It can do whatever it wants, and that's going to create harsh shadows that are going to be difficult to work within your scene and get a nice soft look. Now that we understand a little bit more about the sun and shooting outdoors and what we should expect, let's talk about using a 3-point lighting setup outdoors using only the natural light that's available to us. The first light, the key light. As I previously mentioned, when shooting outdoors, the sun is going to be our key light. Now, there are lights, just for your information, that can rival the sun in terms of brightness when shooting outdoors if they're held close enough, but these lights are fairly expensive, and so they're likely not an option for you and I. So because of that, the key light will be our sun. Now, if it's an overcast day, this is great because the sun is already, like I mentioned, soft and diffused, and this is going to give some nice, great soft light, and you can light your subject very well. But if it's a harsh, sunny day, this is going to cause some problems. So if you can, always try to shoot when it's nice and cloudy outside if possible. But if you are going for that super sunny look, or if you just have to shoot on one specific day and it just so happens to be crazy sunny, you can do a couple things to work that out, and one of those is using a diffusion panel, and they look like this. Diffusion panels are used by holding them between the sun's rays and your subject, and this diffuses the harsh light from the sun and makes it nice and soft. The second light, the fill light. The second light within our 3-point lighting system is, of course, the fill light. And if you're shooting on an overcast day, nice and cloudy, you're not going to have many problems. This is going to be easy to solve. But if you're shooting on a harsh sunny day, this will be the single hardest problem that you have to fix. If it's really sunny out, your subject is likely going to have some nasty shadows across their face, because if you're using the sun for your key light, like we discussed in step 1, that sun is going to be very harsh right here, but because it's going to be hard light, it's not going to be soft and diffusing over to this side of their face. And so you're going to have one side that's really bright and one side that's really dark. And unless you want your subject to look like an evil person from a movie, you're going to want to fix this. And the way to do that is by using a reflection panel. And what you do is you point that at the sun, and then you angle it back at your subject and bounce the sunlight off the reflector to fill this side of their face. And you can be very inventive with this. They do sell reflectors that are extremely cheap. One of the best bang for your bucks cinematography gear. They cost only about $40. Maybe you can get one on Amazon for 20 or so. But if you don't want to shell out the 20 bucks, you can be inventive. I remember I was on a shoot one time and we didn't bring a reflector with us. It was kind of impromptu, and we realized that we needed one. And so what I used was the case that was holding our light. It was a big metal case, but it was a little bit shiny. And so I held that up and reflected the light. Now, it was very heavy and uncomfortable, and I wish we had a reflector. But if you are in a tight budget, you can always just use a piece of cardboard, wrap it with tin foil, and something like that will work very well for this purpose. Number 3, the backlight. Finally, we have the backlight, the third light in our 3-point lighting system, and the sun is a great use for a backlight because what it does really well is it separates your subject from the background, which is of course the purpose of the backlight. Here's an example of this from a scene of The Office. Dwight and Jim, the 2 greatest salesmen of all time, are on a sales call, and you can see the beautiful warm lighting being provided by the sun and being used as a backlight behind them. Now keep in mind, if you're going to use the sun as the backlight, you won't be able to use it as the key light, because unless you're living on Tatooine where there are multiple suns, on Earth there is only one in one place at one time, and so you're only going to be able to use it as one light, unless of course you want your subjects being silhouettes. But there is a remedy for this. Now, of course, today we're talking about using the available light that's already outdoors. We don't want to be hauling lights around with us. So how are we going to be able to use the light as multiple lights within our system if it can only be in one place? Well, the remedy for this is once again a reflector. If you're using the sun as your backlight, once again you take the reflector and you point it at the sun, and then you'll angle it and bounce it back to your subject as the key light. Not only will this diffuse the light from the sun, but it's also going to be nice and soft, and you can use the sun now as multiple lights within your system. To conclude, keep in mind that the easiest time to shoot outdoors is when it's cloudy, when it's an overcast day, because that sunlight is going to be the softest and easiest to use. But if it's a sunny day, you can work around that. Just buy a couple reflectors or create a couple of your own, bring them out with you, and properly angle and bounce the light, and you'll have a work through even if it's a bright, harsh, sunny day. Well, that's all for this lesson of the church video series, and if you haven't already, become a subscriber of Pro Church Tools and you'll get your very own Pro Church Toolkit, which is of course exclusive to subscribers, and there's lots of goodies in there. So go do that, and I'll see you in the next lesson.